You ever hear about a hot new game or an indie title with a dedicated following, and you think to yourself, I want to know what all that hoopla is about? My goal is to find out what makes that game engaging. Why are people playing it? I'm here to answer this question. What's in the game? I'm kicking off the start of this channel with what is easily my favorite game of the year so far. One that has exploded onto the scene like a giant bug taking a rocket to the face. Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is a third-person co-op shooter that features sci-fi super soldiers dropping into combat against nightmarish hordes of giant insects and killer robots. And when I say dropping in, I mean each soldier is literally fired from orbit in a giant bullet directly into combat. This game is the sequel to Helldivers 1, released in 2015 by the same developer, Arrowhead Game Studios. The first game is practically the exact same concept, but played from a top-down perspective. If you never played it before Helldivers 2, you might be shocked at how perfectly the game was transformed into a third-person experience while retaining so much of the original design. While the first title always enjoyed positive reviews and a strong fan base, it never took off in a big way. Helldivers 2, on the other hand, became so popular so fast that the developers could not expand the servers fast enough to keep up with player demand. Looking at the Steam database, I can see that the all-time high player count for the original was about 6,700 players, which is decent enough for a small game, but absolutely dwarfed by the peak player count for Helldivers 2, which currently stands at about 458,000. So let's find out what's drawing people into this game like moths to a flame thrower. We've got to start with the fact that this game has a simple but enjoyable core gameplay loop. You pick a mission, you drop in, and you get busy shooting. Yeah, there's a variety of objectives to accomplish, some of which do affect the gameplay, but the focus here is on the combat. The objectives do add tension by forcing you to hold a position without being overwhelmed, or travel into hostile territory you might otherwise avoid. There are also optional side missions to undertake for bonus points and sometimes in-mission benefits, at the risk of burning time off your mission clock. If you're with a solid group, you might find yourself going even further and eradicating every enemy spawn point on the map. Regardless of how you run your mission, once the primary objectives are complete, it's time to extract, which requires holding down the landing zone for at least 2 minutes while that army of angry robots and bugs that you've stirred up is coming for revenge. Make it on board the shuttle, and you'll survive another glorious victory for Super Earth. And that's pretty much how every mission will go. Seems simple and repetitive, but it's executed so perfectly in this game that you'll be wishing for the in-game stat screens to go faster so you can start all over again. Between missions, you'll use the various currencies you've accumulated to unlock new weapons, abilities, stratagems, and armor sets. Stratagems are your special abilities like calling down an orbital laser or requesting special weapons to be dropped from your ship. It's hard to choose what to get first because it's all so appealing. Do you want to unlock the autocannon turret or the napalm airstrike? The huge artillery barrage or the jetpack? You'll want it all, and the great thing about the game is that eventually you will get it all. More on that later. The biggest source of replayability comes from increasing the difficulty level. The game has 9 total, which you have to unlock in order. Increasing difficulty changes the game in many ways. New enemy types will appear, bigger, badder, and there's way more of them. You'll have more complex objectives to complete, along with optional side quests to discover on each run. All that cool gear you've been eyeballing from the start, you're gonna need it because the game really does become more intense with each notch you turn up the dial. But for your efforts, you'll also get greater rewards, letting you unlock more of those great upgrades faster. While the game lacks a single-player campaign or a lot of story exposition, it is absolutely dripping with world building. The vibe here is satirical, with every character optimistic to the point of absurdity, while going into horrifying battles and fighting for what is clearly a dystopian society. Are we the baddies? Probably yeah. But at this point, it doesn't really matter, because humanity is fighting existential threats on multiple fronts. This is like the Imperium in Warhammer 40k, but instead of a grim, dark future, it's a bright and cheerful one where everyone has a sufficiently sized home and gets to celebrate the idea of voting. But since this is a managed democracy, actually casting a vote is not necessary. The Helldivers you play as are fully committed to liberty and freedom, cheerfully shouting about democracy even as certain death rushes at them. All of this comes together to give the game a vibe that never stops being fun because it's so ridiculous. Helldivers 2 is meant to be played cooperatively, with 4 players dropping into each mission. You can go it alone or with less players, but that can be almost like playing in a different kind of game, where you have to be more sneaky and tactical. A full 4-player squad engaging in epic cinematic battles is what everyone is here for. The game features many ways for you to feel like you're part of the team. When you arrive on another player's ship before a mission begins, it's not uncommon to be greeted with a salute, a high five, or even a hug. During missions, if you die, it's up to your teammates to call down reinforcements so you can respawn and come crashing down from orbit again. Communication is key for smooth completion of objectives, and while not everyone uses the in-game voice chat, there are other ways to indicate direction, point to supplies, or highlight a dangerous enemy, and those get used constantly. The absolute boldest game design decision in Helldivers 2, and one that works brilliantly, is the fact that friendly fire is always turned on. And because in the world of Helldivers, human lives are so expendable, all those airstrikes and automated turrets and other deadly things you call down from orbit, they don't care one bit if you're in the way. Your own turret will blast you to bits if you get between it and an enemy of freedom. Because your characters are relatively frail, and battles are so chaotic, you'll die from friendly fire almost as much as the enemy. To offset this, the game does give you a generous amount of extra lives, so dying is simply an expected part of the experience. What would almost certainly be a source of toxicity and anger in other games turns into simply another oopsie daisy, and it entirely fits into the setting the game has created. Finally, what also keeps players happy with this game is that in a gaming landscape where many companies have become insanely greedy with so-called microtransactions that have gotten way out of hand, Helldivers 2 gives us an example of live service done right. There is premium currency and there are battle passes, but you can very reasonably earn all the currency you need simply by playing the game. I've unlocked several armors from the cosmetic store with currency found during missions. Additionally, there are battle passes, but they're not timed, so if you do purchase one, there's no pressure to treat the game like a job until you finish it. You can take your time and just unlock it as you play. Aside from that, the game also features an ongoing story that is actively managed by the developers. There is apparently a game master who decides which planets are being attacked and where the Helldivers should focus their efforts to get big rewards and push the story forward. This means that every few days you'll be fighting on different worlds for different reasons, making it feel like every drop matters for the overall war effort. This sets up a perfect in-game reason for new gear, new enemies, and new features to become available over time. I think I speak for everyone when saying we can't wait for the player-controlled mechs to appear on the field. We all know that certain things are just flat out fun. Blasting giant bugs and killer robots with a variety of weapons definitely falls into that category. Helldivers 2 takes that simple, obvious idea and cranks the fun factor up to 11. This is a game that takes fun seriously and makes all the serious parts funny. It encourages teamwork while setting the expectation that you might brutally kill each other on accident from time to time. The focus of the developers is on giving players an entertaining experience first. The making a profit part appears to be taking care of itself. I'm really excited to see where this game goes from here. Thank you for watching this first video of What's in a Game. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more, and leave me some feedback in the comments. I love games and I love sharing them with people, which is why I made this channel, so help me to make it great.